Hey all, it's Paul from Drums and Rums, where the backbeats meets the spirits. We're out on location. Again, as you know, I love being out, getting away from the studio there and away from the Zoom. No offense to our Zoom guests. But again, just getting out a chance to meet folks, meet our guests that we're going to talk about here in a minute here. And we're here in Fort Lauderdale. You want to talk about a place to be. Yes, I know if you're listening to this, you probably hate hearing me talk about being jealous about being in Florida, but it's a beautiful day here. We actually have a cold front. This is our cold front version, low 70s. It's beautiful for us. But we're here in Fort Lauderdale on Las Olas, the famous Las Olas Boulevard, here at O Lounge on Las Olas Boulevard. So let me introduce Exactly. Oh. Let me introduce, as you hear, we've got all the sights and sounds, and if you watch the episode we just dropped there with Judith DeBee from Rummy Club, we were filming there in Miami Beach and all the planes, trains, and automobiles that went by on the beach area. So let me introduce to the podcast, Jeff and Samantha Wandzek.
That's right. Thank you for having us, Paul.
Yeah, no, I know we've been chatting for a while, been trying to sync up, COVID things and a lot of things that are going on, and so forth. So yeah,
sometimes it's tough to schedule.
Yeah, that is true. So again, the Jeff and Samantha are the owners of, and let's see if I could say it right, Ouroboros rum, made by Southern Panther Distillery.
Yeah,
here in Florida. It's Broward, Fort Lauderdale.
Yep. So Southern Panther Distillery is the name of our company. Ouroboros is our rum label that we make here in Broward, actually right here in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay, excellent. So we're trying it. So I'm trying it for the first time today, and this is really smooth. It is, and I'm going to let Jeff and Samantha talk about it, but this is really smooth. It's got some nice age on it. You can taste the wood from the barrel and so forth, and we're gonna talk more about this their rum here in a second here. But first, I'm gonna take a sip. So, how'd you get into the spirits business here? So I know we're here in a restaurant, and I know there's a little bit of a tie to it and so forth. And so, how'd you get into the spirits business?
Well, we try to make a long story short all the time.
Way back when. No,
yeah,
just start
exactly.
it off. Where did it begin?
In restaurants.
Okay.
We both come from restaurant backgrounds. I'm still in restaurants.
In this restaurant currently, and others in
Correct.
Fort Lauderdale.
This is one of the restaurants I oversee, O Lounge, attached to YOLO in Fort Lauderdale. Back in the day, we started off in actually terrible margarita bar is where I started.
And I actually started in a pretty crappy Mexican restaurant as well. But not, hey, delicious.
You got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I shouldn't say crappy, although it's closed down, so they won't yell at me. But,
we won't get sued or have
lower
their voice.
end,
Yeah.
maybe.
Eventually I got lucky enough to sit next to a guy in a bar at 2 a.m. who offered me a job bartending in a nice restaurant. And that's
2 in the morning conversations are always great, right?
It was probably a bad decision on his part. I certainly wasn't qualified for the job. I showed up the next Monday when he told me to meet him, and he'd completely forgotten he'd offered me the job. But that was my introduction to nicer restaurants that served high-end wines and nicer liquor labels and things like that. Ultimately, after that job, I opened a couple of restaurants in Boulder, Colorado, with Kimball Musk and some friends that I'd known, and we were very wine geek forward and high-end liquor, and the more we got to know about it, the more interested I became in that side of it, wine and liquor. So.
Okay.
So we actually met in 2003. It was my first fine dining restaurant experience. So I was a host. I like to call it the tale as old as time, as eventually the host hooked up with the bartender. But it was after the restaurant shut down, so I feel like, hey, I had my moral qualities down. But he
It wasn't fraternization at that point.
He actually is a sommelier, and he taught me a lot about wine. So it's probably my first experience with actually learning how to taste wine and try wine was the restaurant that we worked at together.
Okay.
So that was really I think it was a really fun experience to have that together.
They were certainly good times.
So Samantha, was that like a good pickup line that he's like, hey, I want to teach you about wine and to here, try this and try this, right?
Oh, it's definitely smooth like that.
I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I always used to say, oh, I wasn't interested in you back then, but I'm pretty sure I was. I'm pretty sure he was at least smooth in his knowledgeable talk. I always like to say he knows a little bit about everything.
Okay.
So I do science right now, and he's always talking about how smart I am, and I'm like, you know a lot more about so many more things than me. So he's a good teacher.
Good. So Jeff, you're a sommelier, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that something that you had before you started in the industry, or is it something that kind of evolved into like continuing education?
Yeah, it was something that I started doing because of the quality of restaurant I was in. People were into that, and to be honest, people started talking about doing it, so that made me want to do it. So a group of us went out to Hyde Park, New York, to the Culinary Institute there after we'd studied for a few months to try to get our first certification. This was way back in like 2001 probably. And we went up there and took a 3-day test essentially, and got certified as sommelier. And the place was a very wine-driven concept, and all my restaurants after that were very much like that, and it just kind of grew as the years went on. But it was a great environment to be in, and really great people to be around. Boulder, Colorado is kind of an anomaly in that at the time they had something like 7 or 10 master sommeliers in the area, so we were surrounded by wine people.
So do you feel that I probably know the answer already, right? Is you feel that this training and even though it's wine has actually helped in the business, in the rum business and current?
I certainly do. I mean, I think the concept of how you make a product is basically the same. You want to use in wine, the best wines are made from the very best ingredients. So you can't skimp on the ingredients. So you have to buy the very best of the ingredients you're going to use to make your product, because otherwise you're carrying over these other qualities that don't necessarily want in there. And so from a wine, from a wine side, I think that's what carried over to me for making rum, was we wanted the very best quality molasses we could put into this. We wanted the best oak aging system in place for it, and so that's what we tried to do. I don't know if it is the best because we're pretty limited in our production, but we like it.
I think also one of the great things about doing wine training and having to be a sommelier and getting there, just from my experience with having to explain wine, is it's essentially like a tasting wheel that you have, where what flavors are you pulling out, and I think that translates 100% to food, to spirits. So you're trying the rum, if you want to know exactly what flavors he's pulling out from that, I think that 100% comes from the sommelier background training that you have to do with wine.
Yeah, it's definitely a similar process.
Right. So you you kind of know whether somebody's palate or is particular, and most people don't even understand their own palates themselves, right? They taste. That's kind of why I and I may change this, but had shied away from doing reviews, only because I know it's subjective. Everyone's palate is different. And there's some things I've tasted that are somebody else kind of got something else from it, right? And so it's definitely interesting.
It's kind of muscle memory, so taste.
Right.
So,
but see, I guess that's the thing, Jeff. Right? Is I know that someone says again, I'll read a rum review and they say, and I'm sure that can apply for any spirit really, is this has a leather taste or something. It's like, who the hell is tasting leather? I mean, unless you're into S&M, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I get tobacco, I get coffee, get some of these other things, but I don't know.
Hey, I admit sometimes it sounds ridiculous. It absolutely does. Some of the things, especially in wine, you say things like cat piss and things like that. So I don't say that about the rum, but
I've been out of restaurants for about 15 years, so now to me wine tastes like wine. And all my wine, I can be like, oh, this tastes good or bad, but Leather, I don't even know what that means. It tastes like grapes.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the chemical compounds that make up anything, something has a certain amount of this and that, esters, phenols, oils, fatty acids, whatever it is. There's a certain amount of those in everything, and some of them are more in one direction than the other. So, that's what your nose and your tongue picks up on. So
why rum then? So you've been in the business, working in higher end restaurants and wine. Why rum?
It's kind of a long story. Again, I remember being back at the kitchen in Boulder, Colorado. Great restaurant. I opened up another restaurant with the group there. I was heading up the bar there, and that's when I really got into higher end liquors. And I remember drinking a bottle of Ronzacapa back then, and this was a long time ago. It's very different now than it used to be. This was, more 20 years ago, probably.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I was like, it kind of blew my mind a little bit, and so I had a little bit of an inkling to try something at that point, but I just didn't. We weren't in the place to ever do anything like that. And when we were in New York, and we were kind of getting towards the end of our time in New York, about 9 years ago. It was really kind of a coin flip between California and Florida, and it was, so I'm going to make something. It's either going to be wine, or it's going to be whiskey or rum and gin. So we ended up coming down here, which I think ultimately was the best decision. We're surrounded by, fields and fields of sugarcane. So, I mean, Florida makes 70% of the country's sugar, and we wanted to make a local product, so it only fit naturally to do rum. And honestly, it's kind of an underappreciated product, you know? So you can do anything with it. There's no regulations, which I think is also why, in some instances, people think the wrong thing about it because they don't know what they're getting. So we're trying to, pardon me, try to make a very kind of pure example of what rum can be. It's literally just alcohol, water, and a barrel.
Right.
And that is it. So we want the alcohol to show what the molasses can bring over to it, and not cover it up with caramel or burnt sugar or anything like that.
Yeah. So that's an excellent segue then into, so in the process, there's nothing on the back end. It is all pure, comes out in the barrel, and
the only thing on the back end is watering it down so it's 80 proof.
Okay.
So that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it's as pure as you can get, in my opinion. Yeah. Somebody might make more. might have some system worked out better than I do.
Right. No. Because you said you touched upon something that I think really it is a couple things. You're right. I think it's a great time to be involved with rum because there's such a explosion of knowledge that's out there, new folks getting into the industry, more awareness, right? Because again, that most people are familiar with the big guys, right? We won't say their names because they don't, and so forth. I think you all know who I'm talking about. But there's a whole lot other world that's out there other than that. There's a whole lot other world out there than the, slushy machine for your pina coladas. There's a whole other world out there about all these things. Because there's some of these cocktails, and again, these are higher end, that can stand up with it can convert bourbon drinkers or whiskey drinkers or scotch drinkers over and say, people will be blown away and say, this is rum? And it's like, yeah, this is rum. It doesn't all have to be super sweet to kind of, to come off, right?
Yeah, and again, I think there's a place for everything, and I think, additives in rum can make a certain style of rum a certain way. And I just forgot where I was going with that.
Well, I'll jump in and say that our product definitely converted me. I was a big-time vodka drinker, like vodka everything, and then I finally tried to be more grown up and was drinking whiskey, although I will say not a lot of whiskey straight, a lot of like whiskey Coke, whiskey type drinks. So when we first decided to do the rum, and I remember trying it for the first time and just like trying it neat and just getting that look on my face like, what is this? But now I love it. I think it's very smooth. I like to drink it in any type of whiskey drink, so it's very versatile, where you can drink it on its own, or it's really good in mixed drinks as well.
She's really my gauge for quality control. So,
And
if I don't make this face, thinks it's good.
so I because that's interesting, because I think where most that are not familiar with other products other than what's been really heavily marketed is in a mixed drink cocktail is spirits. We'll just say first a little level up is spirits in general, right? Neat, right? Is it can be, scotch or whiskey or bourbon can be a little bit harsh for the palate that are not been trained on it or accustomed to learning it, right? And I think Samantha is I know, like, my wife is like that, right?
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
slowly trying to, again, with all the bottles that I get yelled at for bringing another bottle in the house, which, we will be taking home a bottle here before we go back to up to Palm Beach County. But yeah, there's a little bit, because I think it's that, maybe it's a little the aging process or the barrel process and so forth. Again, rum and Coke, right? So
yeah.
I will sadly say, when I first started drinking our rum, I was drinking Coke with it, and now that I've come so far, it's sort of embarrassing, and I'm like, why did I need to put Coke in it? Like, that's ridiculous. So yeah, he made me a full-fledged aged rum drinker for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it's
pinky out.
Clearly, the only way, right?
But I mean, we did try to make it in the style of like a modern whiskey. I mean, whiskey's been the hot thing for a long, long time, and it's new American oak, alcohol, watered down. I think put it through a charcoal ash filter or something like that. So we're pretty close to that, and I mean people like that style, but it is, it's more difficult to make it that way than to pour caramel into your rum and just kind of give it color and flavor.
I do think this is, though, a little bit smoother and maybe lighter than whiskey, so I think it sort of like branches out to the bigger palate. Like, I think it'll please people that want to drink whiskey, but for people that think whiskey is a little bit too serious,
right?
It's sort of like a good entry.
Yeah, I agree. I think
entry liquor.
Yeah, where the corn kind of gives it like that power in a whiskey drink. This molasses really gives it more of like floral and fruity notes. So I think it differs, and it's a little softer and a little more feminine.
Right. Because that kind of stuff, it can be a bit harsh, right? And
it can be at times, yeah.
So locally sourced, all the ingredients?
Everything from Palm Beach, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. Some maybe from the Glades, county, but it's all local,
Around
just
the lake.
north of us.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So we have them make a very high-end grade A molasses for us. So grades are scaled like you do in school. If you're in the 80s, you're a B. If you're in the 90s, you're an A. And then we're in the top 90s, where we're literally no ash content, high sugar levels. Just crystal clear molasses, which makes a fantastic white rum by itself. And then we put about 2 years of aging on it, depending on how where we think things are, in a 30-gallon barrel.
Mm-hmm.
This batch right here was one brand new char 3 and one once used char 4. It was literally just those two barrels, so 60 gallons. And the barrels are very small, so it gets a ton of wood aspect versus the volume, because there's so much contact there.
Right.
Versus these giant factories that have vats the size of this room, you've got a pool you can jump in and you never touch wood in it. So I think, I don't know, someday I'd like to do a test to see how it compares to somebody's 10-year, 15 and 20-year, and see where it comes out. But I think it kind of falls in that range versus a lot of people's older products, or a lot of distilleries' older products.
So do you have anything that you're keeping in the barrel longer?
There are some things in barrel longer right now. We don't know what we're going to do with them.
Okay.
We actually have very little product, period. We kind of had a COVID shutdown on the molasses side, so we're a little behind on production right now, so hopefully that turns around real soon.
Right.
So
Okay.
if anybody's got good contacts at the Palm Beach.
Shouting out for molasses. Does anyone have good molasses?
We need to talk to somebody directly to get a move on.
Yeah, and again, we have had other guests that have come on who have been Florida based, on the west coast of Florida, whether it's Central Florida and so forth. And are you guys part of the craft spirits associations or anything like that?
Not really. We're very small, and we both have full-time jobs, or more than full-time jobs for both of us even. She's gotten a lot of connections through social media. Case in point here.
Hello. That's how we met.
So it's very grassroots for us.
Yeah. Okay.
So hopefully in the next couple of years we can kind of expand and grow.
I think what happened was we were really trying to make a push like right before COVID happened, and then COVID happened and it just sort of died. And then once things started opening up and we really wanted to expand, was now we can't get molasses. So as much as we want to promote the product and have people buy it, we also can't push it too much or we're going to run out before we can produce more. So
Right.
It's sort of been the love-hate. We want people to try it, but not too many people. So.
Right. And I think there's and hopefully, the listeners and the viewers, those that are, as we call them, right, as you listen and see all the stuff that I post, drummers or rummers, right? For those of you that are rummers that are very, who have been experienced or whatever you want to call it, but for those that are kind of like, in the middle there, that are kind of learning you or listening to this podcast, is, again, the craft aspect of it, right? The small batch aspect of it. And again, most of everyone we talk to who are making rum or have the rum product, whether they're the distillery themselves or whatnot, this is a sea of, not necessarily, competing against this, each other, but again, cracking into the market where there's a huge influence by other larger brands. But at the same time, as you mentioned there, is some of the challenges we know in industry. Buying, yes, you're larger, you have a little bit more control, better price points, because you buy more volume, so it can be a challenge. I guess it's interesting, is if it's out there that, and maybe through I think the Florida Craft Spirits Association, that help. And again, I have no idea. I'm just kind of throwing this out there. What if the ability to help collectively source? Again, you have your certain type of molasses that you have, and I'm sure the other companies here in Florida that are. But again, helping kind of, you know what I mean? So.
A little help would be nice.
Yeah, I think for us it's been, again, trying to find balance. I try to help out as much as I can, but this is essentially his baby. Like, he teaches me, but all about the distilling and all that stuff has been on him. But he works a lot.
Right.
So sort of us just trying to put together a laundry list of how we can find the next step. And some of our days off are great, and we get so much done with our, we call it the hobby, but it's really the business that we'd like to live off of at some point.
Right.
So we try to do what we got to do, but
yeah. We're growing. We're just growing slowly. So
right.
I will say,
but it starts with local support. You go around to the people and you put a product that you hope people will like out there, and if they do, they buy it. So,
right.
So it's for us, it's not a pretty label. It's the product, and
right.
In fact, half of our labels are probably crooked because we put them on ourselves. So
together, usually sweating. But I think one of the things that has been good is just the support that we've had. The restaurant group that he works at, the restaurant people have been very supportive. Clearly we're doing this podcast at one of the restaurants that he manages. They carry our product in some of his places, and I feel like would potentially do more if we had enough product right now available. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we already have had a lot of community love.
Yeah.
Our distributor, Florida Craft.
Yeah. Local small distributor up in Delray, actually.
Okay.
Great people. Helped us out, to get distribution. Our first location was actually in Primo Liquors down the street, just around the corner.
Okay. Yep.
They've got great ownership there. They've got really cool stuff in the store. So they were biggest outlet for a long time. So they sell. We can order a bottle up here, they'll deliver it to us, or you can order a bottle in Washington and they'll send it through the mail to you. So
yeah, and again, big shout out for Primo's, because I've because I don't live down here, but I know of them and I have been to the stores and they've had some events, and they are definitely huge, right?
Yeah.
In their own right, because they're up against the other
tough,
larger,
big guys, the big
right,
box stores,
right.
yeah.
And Benny over there at the one on Federal,
And Koshel and his brother.
and they're very supportive. They're supportive of a couple other guests that we've had on there, so it's great that there's that aspect of growth, because they are also, if I'm trying to go from memory here, but they're plugged into the Florida Rum Society as well, as one of the liquor stores, spirit stores that has a good selection of rum.
Yeah,
So,
they have a great rum list
Yeah,
over there.
yeah.
So, and you need those people like that for stepping stones.
right.
So, yeah.
So,
So,
very cool. So, so just real quick, Jeff, you hold that bottle up there for the camera there, and talk again. I'm just looking at the bottle there, and then on the back there, of course, the great state of Florida there,
Yep.
American made, U.S. Florida made, right?
yeah, the only thing that's not Florida is our barrels. We haven't found a cooper in Florida that makes American white oak barrels.
Jeff,
but
that was a secret.
if if somebody knows one, we'd like to meet them.
Okay.
So,
There's we've had a guest on earlier last year, and from Scotland. They're making rum in Scotland now, and it's
Yeah.
just totally crazy, the different barrels and things and so forth. So the name. Okay, how did we come up with the name of the rum?
so we wanted something that had kind of been around for a while, and Ouroboros, the symbol of the serpent eating its own tail, has been around for a very long time.
I text or message Samantha, was like watching
What does this mean?
Snowpiercer, and I was like, hey, this is weird. I know a new word, and now I'm seeing it everywhere.
No, it's exactly. It's out there, and it's been out there forever. I mean, I think it originated in like North Africa, and kind of ran through Eastern Europe and Western Asia even too. It's super ancient symbol, kind of for the end and the beginning, rebirth, eternity. And for us, it was the beginning of something, not necessarily the end of anything, just an evolution. So, I know she's got more to say on this one. So
We've been together a while. He was waiting. He's like, so are you going to talk now?
she hasn't
or-
shushed me yet, so I'm doing good.
Well, yeah, you've been married. You guys have been married for a while, so you know the right cues.
So I think one thing is we wanted a special name. Sadly, a lot of people can't pronounce it, so maybe that was a party foul on us. But we wanted something special for the brand. And as we were saying, like the beginning and the end, I really think it's looking at both of our relationships, even more so with him, in the restaurant industry and in like wine, spirits, and all that, where, I don't know, I started off as a dishwasher in a restaurant. Did you go any lower than bartender, or were you lucked out?
I was a busser.
Oh, you were a busser. All right. So
I was
there you
not
go.
a good busser. I was a good busser. I was a terrible server.
I like how you said it. Yeah, there you go.
But just starting out, like entry level positions in restaurants, and I think making rum, it's still all the same. It's essentially, we're both foodies. We both love wine. We both love exciting specialty cocktails. So I think really it's even if this took off one day, we'd still sort of be doing the same thing that we've always loved. And so the continuous cycle of us eating too much and drinking too much and having a good time.
Yeah, I think
I'll
that's
call it
perfect.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. You sit right next door here, YOLO, right? We all know what YOLO means, right? So.
That's
I didn't
right.
know until he worked here.
I actually didn't know until I worked here either.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big Drake listener.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's how I learned about what it was. Did Drake get credit for actually coming up with that? Or
Actually, it was us.
okay,
Yeah.
there you go. You heard it here,
It's
right?
it's actually trademarked.
There you go. See,
Yeah.
Drake. See?
Yeah.
You only live once, for
Yeah.
those of you who don't
So
know.
let's sue Drake. Is that what we're saying?
That's what we're saying.
Okay, perfect. So. What's a podcast without controversy, right?
Yeah, you got to throw a little spice in there.
Exactly. So the sorry. So Sam, you still
I think
Yeah,
went on the cycle
okay.
and
Yeah, the name
it's
and
going
so forth.
on
Yeah,
forever.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I had I definitely, you know, the label there is definitely has a nice kind of, you know.
Yeah, we didn't talk too much about it, but
Yeah.
yeah, the serpent we turned into an alligator, and the to kind of, you know, support the great state of Florida. We've got a lot of those guys around here.
So my side note about the label is the overall design was designed by Jeff, but one of our good friends, Laura Southard, who's married now. Sorry, Laura. I'm just going to use your maiden name. I actually worked with her waiting tables in Boulder, and she's a very talented artist, and so she's the one that actually designed the label.
Yeah, she did all the graphics for it.
So yeah, so yeah, that's so how'd you come up? So you got the name and then the logo here that she designed, or you designed, I guess. So you got a gator. So we've got a Florida tie. We have a panther on here. I see the crest, the Florida crest on the shield. So obviously we're here in Florida where we do have panthers.
Yeah, so the Southern Panther Distillery, that's the logo for the company, is the crest with the flag, the Florida state flag, and the two panthers. So panthers being the state animal. You know, we're all about supporting rescued dogs, but we'd like to support some other causes as well at some point in the future. We just need to make a little money.
I think it was mainly trying to, you know, keep the local aspect. So clearly, Florida's known for its gators. Hello, Florida Gators. And you know, the Everglades are. A lot of people don't know there are panthers in the Everglades, and I'm like, yes, there are. You see signs. They say watch out for turtles and panthers and alligators, all of those things. So
Yeah.
There's a lot in the Everglades, right? You know, as John Voight said in that movie Anaconda, big snake. You know, I can't say his accent. He had,
there's
but
a lot
yeah.
of snakes that get dumped in the Everglades.
Yes.
So a lot of stuff that's not supposed to be in Florida, that's in Florida right now.
Right. So, and again, that's the aspect thing is, and as we were talking before the show about how you know, getting out of the studio there and meeting people, and I've always I think now the podcast always has evolved into wanting to do like a Guy Fieri kind of show where I drive around in a Camaro, I tape episodes, drink and run with people, meet drummers, etc. But the geography aspect of it, I mean, this is our great state of Florida here, right? I wasn't born here as well, but have now lived here more than half my life and have children here that are born here. But the aspect of, you know, we're talking about Palm Beach County, right, produces the large county that produces sugarcane, and in that Florida in general, it produces more sugar than even Louisiana. And I know it's fairly close, but the whole aspect of the ecosystem, we're talking about the Everglades, right? You've gone from the Lake Okeechobee, that whole, you know, everything south of it, the Everglades, the farms, and again that whole the Everglades, you know, making sure that that's still around, right? So that's pretty cool. So Southern Panther now. So we have the rum brand, but the company is also the distillery too, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you talk a little bit about Southern Panther then, the distillery.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, you know, we're at this point, we think we're going to be here for the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make local products. We want to showcase local. You know, the Panther's a big deal down here for the state, and you know, we thought it was a good fit for the name of our spirits company.
Right.
So right now we're partnering with South Florida Distillers out of Fort Lauderdale to make our products, mainly because we haven't found the space
Yeah.
to have our own.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I think when we were like Southern Panther Distillery, and it's like, but we're not distilling anything ourselves yet. It's a little sad, but we're hoping in the next couple years to have our own property and space to do things. But again, it all goes back to Florida. I think just trying to keep things as local as possible,
Right.
which I think also goes into, you know, the restaurant business and all that. It's just, you know, trying to support everything we can to keep everything moving with where we're living.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time trying to find a small warehouse where we thought we could do our own distilling, and it doesn't work out. They're not up to the codes you need for it. So, you know, thankfully we met Joe and Avi over at South Florida Distillers. Joe has a still, so he makes our white forest spec, and they've got the space to hold our barrels until we have our own space right now.
Okay.
So
No,
good guys.
that's great to be able to have
Yeah.
partners and to kind of, and then again know that you do have other aspirations to kind of.
And they know our aspirations, and they still want to work with us and help us get to where we want to go to next. So I think that's also important. Because a lot of people, we can be as involved as we want, or if there's no time. But as far as the rum and when it's going to stop aging, Jeff is constantly going in to determine if it's ready or not, and how much longer we want to age it. We're also in the process of making gin right now, so we've been making we can talk about that later because this is the Drums and Rums show. Maybe later. But
we'll pick this up on guitars and gin, right?
There you go, channel 2.
But Joe at South Florida Distillers has been really, really good with us, helping us create test bottles and trying to find the perfect formulation for us, and letting us sort of do our thing. So they've been great partners.
Yeah.
So that's a great partner, because again, if they knew your aspirations, and have some obviously reservations, to know that you will branch, go off where then they would be losing, because they're in their own business and supporting you guys and so forth, right? They're obviously not doing it for free, but to not lose a customer to do that. So I mean, that's great that everyone's all working together, right?
Exactly.
Right. So
little stepping stones.
So let me back up here again. I totally. I think I may have missed it, guys. So when did we start? I guess. Did you say that I just maybe missed it there? So when did we start this the project? So when was it established there?
Unofficially, it was established at her brother's wedding in Italy.
2015.
Okay. We were probably sitting around smoking cigars and
not me. I'm just gonna say it wasn't me.
Drinking something in a villa above Amalfi. Wow, that sounded really pretentious when I put it out there like that.
I should say at the time Jeff wasn't working.
We were both unemployed and poor.
No.
And we were there.
I had been working, but the entire trip was on credit cards. So
So
it was not pretentious at all. It was going into debt to see my brother marrying his beautiful wife.
Yeah. So we've all been very close because we all lived in New York together. He and a couple of his friends, and they offered to partner up on the project, and so it started kind of there, I think, officially in 2016. I don't know if the wedding was in 2016 or not.
2015.
So yeah, we've been a company since 2016. It took us until the September or October before COVID hit to get the product out. It was number one. It was it was a lot of work figuring everything out, and then it took 2 years to put the start of the product to the finish of the product, and then of course COVID kind of crushed us in March. So
I think the first time we labeled batch 1, it was maybe March of 2018, and then in fall of 2018 was when Primo started carrying us, and we were trying to get out and about, and then
2019.
Right. Thanks COVID-19, but
yeah. So
yeah.
So it was a long, slow process, but
okay. Most people have the stories they've told me is they've been sitting on a beach somewhere in the Caribbean, and they said, I want to start a rum company, but it's a little different. I'm sure sitting around, and I'm sure a little bit of, hey, what about this?
Yeah, exactly. It's been in the back of my mind for a real long time, pretty much since I drank that Ronzacapa bottle back in Colorado, but it took 15 more years to actually put it into action. So
I would say we're celebrating our 18th anniversary, dating anniversary this month. We've been married for almost 11 years.
All right, congrats.
I would say about year 3 is when we were trying to talk about what are we going to do. So are we going to make wine? Should we have a wine bar? Should we have a restaurant? So when we moved to New York, there were a lot of people that were like, we'll back you, open a place. And we moved there so I could go to grad school, and 8 years later we were still there, but we never thought that we were going to stay there forever. So that's the reason we never pulled the trigger then.
Yeah.
So
we knew we would always do something with food or beverage.
I think the distillery aspect made the most sense for us to still be able to keep full-time jobs, but we're trying to figure it out. Because clearly if we started a restaurant, it's that's your baby, that's it, you're giving up everything else.
It's a lot more.
Yes, and it's a little scarier.
Right.
Because if it doesn't work, it's
right. And it's right. You can make spirits, put it in a barrel, and you've got a little bit of I don't want to say downtime, but I think you know what I mean, right? Cooking time or whatever.
Exactly.
Call it, right? The restaurant is 24/7.
Yeah, you can't just let it sit.
Right. Yeah.
So
Because for those that watch, John Taffer, right? The bar rescues and comes and tells everybody what they should be doing and yells at everybody just to make a TV show.
Yeah.
Right?
That's his thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So So what? Eventually, I said, working together as
We took our sweet time for sure. So.
Yeah. So when the restaurant we worked at together shut down before we were ever dating. So we probably started dating like 3 or 4 months after that, and we were both working at different restaurants in the community we were in. I went back to school, so I was working and going to school, and he was starting up. I think at the time the kitchen upstairs opened, so he was opening like a
urban wine lounge.
So he was working till like 3 a.m. So I would work and go to school and take a nap for like 5 hours and wake up at 3 a.m. when he got off to hang out with him. Can't imagine doing that now. There's no way that would happen now.
Yeah, I wouldn't get to see her.
She really must have been into you then.
Yeah, I got lucky.
But I think it's always been a balance for us. When we first moved to New York, he was working a lot of long hours as well, or like closing shifts. So it was just trying to find time together. I feel like the good thing with his position now is he's sort of floating around managing all the different restaurants, so he can go in a little bit earlier. He's home a little bit earlier, but we've always said we love to work together full time. A lot of people don't understand that. They're like, oh, we need space. I'm like, well, we've sort of had space on and off for like 18 years. Like, I'm okay with actually spending more time together.
Right.
But
our best times are when we get stuck with each other for a few months because we both were moving or something like that. So
Yeah.
some fun
It was always
unemployment.
good. Yeah.
Again, usually credit cards. We're not loaded. It's usually irresponsible, but we have a good time.
So buy some Ouroboros.
You might have to pour a little more of that.
Can I?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right.
Got a whole
We have
other
another
bottle right
bottle.
here.
Okay.
Probably more bottles somewhere
All
behind the
right.
bar.
So yeah, it's interesting that spirits world, the restaurant world, service industry in general, right? So and how there's this whole, again, very much like the label, right? It's a cycle or a circle of. And I talk about this a lot on the podcast, where it's like during COVID, how much impactful that was, where it was close down establishments, nobody's going out, nobody's going to bars. Now what happens, right? Nobody's drinking spirits, right? So again, if you're a spirits business, you're also getting hammered. Okay, musicians, right? Now you're a musician, where do you mostly play, right? And now everybody had to kind of change and figure it out during those, mostly 2020 here, we were talking earlier, 2021, Florida was a little bit more open than most states, but there was this whole cycle, right? Is now it's impacting everybody because of COVID, and I know some of the laws during the pandemic allowed establishments to sell spirits out the door with their to-go, right? Which
is great.
Did they still have that?
They locked it in. It's good.
Oh well, shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So.
But I think most of the people still want to go out and experience it. But I think at least, Florida was open, but one of the big things that COVID still did was bars and restaurants were still trying to recover. So no one was bringing in new product. So that's one of the reasons we weren't like, oh, try this rum, bring it in.
Right, because they were trying to recoup themselves. And I've seen that even up where I live here in Palm Beach County, is musicians were, some establishments had full bands, and they scaled it back to just maybe a single or a duo because they can pay less for still live music, right? So
no one knew if they were going to even be able to support anything for a while, and
right.
To have the extra expensive music when you're only allowed to have like 50 people in your restaurant, it was like
live music isn't cheap, but that is a draw. That's kind of why places want to give live music, because you're going to have to see live music, rather than just whatever's in the jukebox or so forth. So so that's kind of an interesting aspect of it. So I guess going through the establishment is starting up this product, and great that it's a Florida-based product. Again, that's we live here, right? This is our home state, right? So and going through. So, do you have any? And I'll say this for the end, and I'll ask you about what do you got upcoming and so forth. Promotional stuff, events and so forth here in a bit. As we call the shameless plug, right? So segment there. But so I guess are you guys ready for the rapid fire segment here? You need a little drink.
Shot.
Wait, let me just take a little more.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess I don't need it because it's not me that's going to be on the hot seat, right?
Well, there's two of us.
Are we going to shout out at the same time?
However you guys want to answer. You guys want to answer together or answer or I guess you see how each
We got to see what the questions go with.
Yeah.
It might be a group decision or
That's
we might
true.
have solo answers.
Or you phone a friend or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So. All right, so here we are in our segment in 4 sips or less. Okay. So again, if you listen to the podcast, you know what the first question is, and I won't put you on the spot and ask you if you know what it was. So in 4 sips or less, neat or on ice?
I'm 100% on ice. Even if I love it, I like that little bit that just smooths it out, maybe makes you drink it a little bit faster. Burns a little less. That's always been my palate, though.
All right, Jeff.
I am a cube until dinner, and then after dinner, I'm neat.
Okay.
Warms you up.
Yep. It's a lot different.
Yeah.
All right. So in 4 sips or less. So we're here in South Florida, right? And again, we have a tie to the Panthers that we talked about. It was in the Everglades. It's the Florida Panther. Okay. So what do you think the chances are for the Florida Panthers making to the Stanley Cup Finals?
I think
I'll let him answer this one.
they look pretty good, but it's going to be tough. There are a couple of really good teams out there right now. So
Okay.
Avalanche, Knights, a couple of good teams out there.
He's doing the plug because he lived in Colorado.
Except I think they're in the
years.
other conference, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they're
Yeah, so I think they might make it to the Stanley Cup Finals.
I hear they do have a good team this year. I haven't been following. It's tough because as we talked before, I was originally from New Jersey.
I think the Bruins are pretty tough, right now.
It's so odd. I have.
So wait, are you a Devils fan?
I am a Devils fan.
She is kind of too.
Well,
So
I actually sort of got into hockey when I was living in Colorado, and one of the times that the Colorado Avalanche won, I think, was on my 18th birthday, and they were playing the Devils, and I was rooting for the Avalanche, and my sister was irate with me. She was actually
Do you know how
mom's
much
house.
I hated that? Yes.
Do you? I don't know. What? 2000?
2001? 2001?
It was 2000.
2000. Okay, I remember.
I was
there
the 2000 baby. I graduated from high school in 2000, so it's like one of those things. Yeah, my sister was royally pissed at me. She's like, "You're from Jersey. What do you mean?" I'm like, go Avalanche.
I so despise Patrick Waugh.
Oh, I loved him.
He was
He'd
the
come out and
best.
fight people. Goalie fights, those are the best.
But Marty Brodeur did surpass him in most wins of any NHL goaltender.
Good for him.
Yes,
Good for
so,
him.
Yep, yes, so
It's
yes.
it's a crazy sport. I do love
Yeah.
it. I do love it. So go Panthers now.
There you go. There you go.
Go Panthers.
Devils are not doing very good this year, so it's been very tough for me to continue following once Martin Brodeur had retired and a lot of the other team, and still staying plugged in, watching the games down here. Usually, my wife will, she's a hockey convert from me, and she'll give me the updates. That's like, oh yeah, the Devils are on playing against the Islanders. Oh, they got their butt kicked. The Devils aren't been really that good in a while, but yeah, I'll still support. Again, it's kind of like when I did transition to Florida. I think still New Jersey, the Devils are still probably the last sport that I have held out that I've transitioned to a Florida team now, where
Yeah.
the
Well,
Dolphins and
no,
After a while, it just starts to stick on you,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
like it depends what team's playing. If it's a Florida team against someone we don't care, clearly we're going to vote for Florida.
Yeah,
but
right.
I will say I don't know that it was 2000. Maybe it was 2001. I don't know if I was 18 or not. So
Okay.
you'll have to look up after this.
Okay.
Have to
When
fact
the Avalanche
check
beat
that
the
one.
Devils.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm thinking about it, and I was like,
The Avs won it 3 years in a row, so it's probably one of those years.
There was for some reason I want to think it was Yeah, because Devils won in '95, and then they won not too long after that, a few years later, and it's around the turn of the century, right?
Hey, Panthers, went on a great streak last year. If they can do it again this year.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. So, all right. So, in 4 sips or less, knowing what you know now, what would you do different in your endeavor into the spirits world?
I know that one. I know
It
you
might
know
be the
that
same.
one. I think we probably wouldn't have started with the rum, mainly because we wanted to make the best product we can. So it's pricier to make than other things, and there's the aging process. So we mentioned we're making gin now. We probably should have flip-flopped it, just to get that money flow going, to be able to have the rum and make more of it, especially like in hindsight, not knowing COVID was happening. If we had the gin, we could have made more rum to begin with. We might not be in the predicament that we're in. But I have the but. I do think it's a really superior product, and I think it stands for itself, and I think people have been willing to have it in their restaurants or in their stores because it reaches that level. So we love it.
Yeah.
We're just wondering if it would have worked out better in a different order.
In the champagne world, you have a lot of champagne houses have their tête de cuvée, which is their very top label they make. So our rum's always going to be that for us. Like that's what we're going to put, our most passion and love into. But yeah, had we started with the gin, we might have been able to expand a little faster. It might have made our lives a little easier.
So you talked about that. So you have your base spirit, your base silver, right?
Yeah, we make a white rum that's just phenomenal. Yeah.
So okay.
So we could have done something with that as well, but we didn't. So there's a lot of
we decided to wait two years,
So
before we did anything with it.
So you wouldn't think about putting two different ones out there, an aged and a silver?
I don't know. It's the white market's is kind of
it's right. It's very
like if
right.
if you wanted to charge $35 or $40 for a bottle of white rum, it's like you really have to it's really a niche market at that
Right.
point, I think. So it might. I mean, in Florida, it might be a good market.
Yeah.
So. We really like what we made. We just, cash flow. We didn't think about that at the beginning.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah. And I'm surprised because you talked about the charcoal filtering. In the charcoal filtering is before it goes in the barrel, right?
So yeah, when we were talking about that, we were talking about the bourbon process.
Oh, okay.
And you do have to use a charcoal filtration at the end stage of it, or before you age. But this, we do have very heavily charred barrels. I don't know how active the char is in a barrel. I assume it's somewhat active, so you get some level of filtration in barrel from that. Char forward barrels are very heavily charred. You can't char them more than that. They really start to turn into cracked up volcanoes at that point. But yeah, it's cool stuff. And your barrel plays a big part in it. If you don't have good barrel or good wood in your barrel, then the flavors aren't good either. And if you don't start with the right product, you're not carrying over the esters and phenols and things that you want in your product too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I've tried another product where it was I guess it wouldn't even, I don't know if they were calling it as a silver or clear. It was basically a white rum, but it was aged and then they charcoal filtered it out the color, and you're drinking this clearer rum, and it's like, wait, why do I have smoke on this? And it's kind of was very kind of interesting, but
Yeah, so it's tough because you're deciding between, do I put it through a filter? Because you're also, filter will filter out things you want in there too.
Yeah.
So it's tough. So, our product, the first batch was absolutely zero filtration whatsoever. The second product we put through a cheesecloth just to make sure there wasn't a piece of ash in it or something. But we didn't do anything else than that. So it's got everything that carried over into, that came out of the still and went into the barrel. Aside from chunks of the barrel that might have fallen off. So that's pretty much it. So it's tough because filtration does do something for it, but I think if you're carrying over all of the qualities you want and you're not carrying over any of the negative qualities, then your product's good right there.
Right.
So, or at least you hope. That's a process. So.
Okay. So last one. All right.
I feel like we've been doing more than 4 sips, but go.
Well,
No,
yeah,
so
if
I
we-
definitely,
yeah,
I
so if we
definitely
had
didn't
more-
understand the 4-sip concept until that last one there, and I was like, oh yeah, we had way more time to talk about the first couple. That wasn't very rapid fire.
That's right. Yeah, it's supposed to be, yes. And again, the drummers get in 4 beats or less.
Okay, I got it.
So, and it's funny because some of the drummers will say, well, what is the tempo? Because 4 beats could be a different type
Yeah.
And I might have only had 1 sip while we were
yeah,
talking.
sure.
Kill it.
All right.
I got another bottle here if you want.
Okay. So, in 4 sips or less, maybe I should put Jeff on the hot seat for this one, Samantha. Ready?
All right.
All right. So, as being a husband-wife duo in this business, and being together, he said met in the restaurant industry and so forth, and celebrating 18 years dating anniversary, 11 total.
Yeah.
Married?
April 16th.
Okay.
It's right around the corner.
Congrats, Jeff. What was the song that played at your wedding that you had your first dance?
Oh, the first dance. We walked in on a beautiful day. You too.
Sorry I put you on the spot.
Wait. Well, what's funny is he should immediately. Can I give him a hint?
Oh, the ring. It was a U2 song also.
Yes. It's our song.
You say you want diamonds and a ring of gold,
He's singing.
but I can't remember the name of the song.
We've never had karaoke on the
Maybe,
podcast
maybe Ring of
before.
Gold? Is that the name of the song?
All
U2?
I want.
All I Want. Damn it.
So
I can hear it in my head, but I couldn't get to the verse.
But I gotta tell you, it's annoyed. It's not because he can't remember it, but he's a huge U2 fanatic, which is where all these songs came from.
Okay.
But I don't know the names of songs. I'm terrible. The only reason I know names of songs is when they pop up on my screen in the car.
Yeah.
That's the only time I remember
And
them.
I listen to anything from the 80s. It's like, oh, that's the name of the band. I was like, I know that song and all that. Yeah.
Like I can sing the whole song, but I know that was the name of the song.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's from the chorus.
Hey, at least
All
I got it
Want Is
right.
You.
At least I got it right.
Yeah.
You sang
It just
to me.
took a while.
Yes, that's
You
right.
sang to me.
I sang to you again.
Serenade. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, we have it. This is the new episode of Love Connection on Drums and Rums.
It should always be a couple show.
That's always. It's something you guys said earlier. Again, we're gonna branch off and talk later. We're gonna branch off this whole thing, and they said something that struck really well that I thought would be really great to either you guys can do your own podcast or have a show. It's called Samantha, you said something about bartenders and hostesses or something like that. Bartenders and so
Yeah.
forth. So
it would be a little
Yeah.
That would
dirty,
be-
a little TVMA probably.
A
Yeah.
tale as old as time.
Yes. Stories from behind the bar. You know.
Hosts, bartenders, waiters, waiters.
Yes.
The restaurant industry is very incestuous, but not in the brother-sister way, but we all work together. And
It's a family, right? Because
when you're younger,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And
It's a
But-
family with different gene pools.
I will say, some of our greatest friends that we may not talk to very often, like the minute we get back with them, people that we worked with, it is like family.
Yeah,
Like
we
you
do go
see
back
them
and see those people.
You know,
a
it's
lot.
like even if 4 or 5 years have passed, huge hug, unless it's COVID, and then you just wave to each other from across the room. But it's a really interesting field that industry to work in that I don't think you have in a lot of other jobs.
Yeah, I think I agree with that because it's a different type. It's not an office, not in your own little cubicle. You're working together, and usually, if it's the end of the night and you're sitting around or whatever, and then yeah. So, I think most people probably work in some type of service. You know, growing up, being younger, that's where you kind of start, right? Is in a service type job, and I learned to somewhat bartend at a restaurant that I worked in, a Chinese restaurant. Before moving to South Florida, and I didn't go to school for bartending, so I didn't know a lot other than just getting thrown behind the bar and making whatever.
It's
and
all
so
right.
forth, you know. But yeah, but I think really fascinating, guys, is a lot of other guests, a lot of similarities I see. You know, guests that come on that are either who are also sommeliers or who have wine backgrounds, and so it'd be kind of interesting. I always keep talking about other little meetups, like a Zoom session. Right, I've been talking about doing coming up next month is National Distillers Day. I think it's on a Sunday, actually. Is kind of having zooming in other distillers together. Just again, those that are interested in talking to peers, right? So, I don't know. We'll see. But again, very similarly, like a couple of the guests we had on who are other wine involved with wine. So it's interesting how the paths cross every so.
What? Yeah, I think because in wine you train yourself to recognize certain things, but most people don't do that with alcohol. But if you come from a wine background, you're very component. Like I feel there's this in this wine. You can feel the acidity and the structure and all these other things that are in there. And people that have worked as a sommelier or trained as a wine steward of any kind, their palate is a big thing, and I think that should translate to alcohol and beer, right, and anything you put, anything you consume, essentially. And I think maybe that sector is up and coming now.
Right.
So,
are you familiar with rumliers? Have you heard that?
Rumliers?
So there is a.
I gotcha. Okay.
Through the Royal Rum Society, there is actually some training probably similar to a sommelier, is that you can go through and you can acquire your rumlier certification or whatever.
I'd like to become more familiar with it.
I feel like there's this whole rum fraternity or sorority side that we're not familiar with that we need to get involved.
So like I said, if you're not, again, plugged to the Florida Rum Society, it's probably so the Miami Rum Congress was a couple weeks ago, right? I know they got rescheduled, and it was supposed to be February. Some of us who were planning on going, because it got rescheduled to basically spring break, for who have kids, rescheduled. The Florida Rum Society decided to let's just keep the same weekend reservations, etc., because a lot of people were already coming, and the Rum Society decided to do our own Miami takeover. We just, so the guys over there, who lead up the Florida Rum Society, brought other groups in to do some tastings and other events, and again, one of the things that we went down to was, and I just saw your recent post from Swizzle.
Yeah, that's a great spot.
So they did a tasting in there with one of the other brands that came in. So so if you check out, go to Swizzle, you see Samantha and Jeff's products there, Ouroboros. Am I saying it right?
Ouroboros.
Okay, all right. So.
I mean, that's how we say it. What if we're saying it wrong? Wow. Well,
okay.
Our brand is going to pronounce it.
Hey, if you say it enough, it becomes part of the truth, right? That's right. So.
It's our truth.
It is.
Yeah. So I mean, we can talk afterwards about that, but there's other things out there, and again, if it's something that you're interested in, there, I do know through this endeavor, somebody heads up that Rumlier certification process, etc. We can talk more about it. So, Greg, if you're listening to this podcast, maybe you might have some new folks that are wanting to join the Rumlier. I'm not one yet. I haven't gone down that path yet, but
I'm certainly not. But I do like what we make.
I'm a good drinker, right? So, yeah. So, all right. So we've made it through the podcast here. We got two more things before we wrap up, and so you've made it through the pain of our show here. So, if I trip up on my AirPods here, so I've got a shirt for you, Sam, and for Jeff. Well, that's not Jeff.
We grab them so we don't trip over anything.
Nice. I didn't know we got prizes for making it through the show.
That's right. That's right.
We'll show the prize off.
So there you go. So.
Oh hey.
So welcome to the alum.
Fantastic.
So you guys are now part of the Drums and Rums alums there.
We also have some swag for you.
Okay, thank you. There you go.
Oh, this is great.
Look at that. All right, thank you guys. All right, and join a pretty cool group that that a previous guest had told me when they heard the name. Again, if you listen to the podcast, you're sick of hearing me saying this, but they heard the name and said Drums and Rums. It's like milkshakes and hand grenades. They don't go together, but it just seems to work, right? And that's kind of like the Facebook group we have, where we got a lot of drummers and rummers, as we call them, right? And again, it's a cross pollination of everyone's sharing a little bit different thing. Those that want to learn more about rum, those can share it with those that are want to learn more. There's a lot of knowledgeable people, and same thing about music too, and those that are drummers and so forth. Jim Riley from Rascal Flatts have been on the podcast, and Dorothea Taylor, the granny drummer, you've probably seen on she was on Jimmy Fallon last week, so she's been on. So it was some really cool folks that have joined this community, again, helping promote everybody and promoting brands and so forth. So what do you guys have coming up? Okay, so here's the shameless plug that we talked about. What do you want them to know? Did we miss anything that you felt like people need to know about?
So I at least like people to know where we're at right now and things that might be going on. So again, the restaurant people have been great to us. You can taste our rum at YOLO or at Boatyard or at Rooftop in Fort Lauderdale. We're also at 3rd and 3rd in Delray Beach. And then Christian at Florida Craft has been a huge lover of our rum. So he lives in Miami, so he's been trying to get us out all over Miami. So we're featured in Swizzle right now. We're also at Sugarcane Raw Bar and Grill. And then recently at Esoteki. I'm going to see. I knew I was going to.
Esotica. So.
It's like one of those things where if you pretend you know how to say it.
Wait, where is that? Exotico?
Esotica.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, it's exotic.
Okay, I was saying it wrong that whole weekend.
Down in Miami.
Yes, I was saying this wrong too.
So cool tiki bar.
Yep.
So we're behind the bar there, but one of the things that we're working with them, we just ordered a 5-liter barrel, and they're planning to, they do barrel old fashions out of different rums. So they're planning to have our rum as one of their barrel old fashions, which will probably take a couple months. Once we get the barrel
they like to put a little
in,
extra age on it with the barrel.
They usually let it age, I think, for at least a month from what they were saying.
Okay.
And then, as you mentioned, Swizzle actually has us on
their Florida rum
experience tasting menu. So it's 4 different
It's
Florida
really
rums.
great.
When we were there, we actually tried them all, and what I loved about it was they were all unique, and they all had different flavor profiles. Whether it be a little bit more caramel wine, more aged,
or drier style.
Like each one that they have on there was very unique. So I thought that was super fun and completely local. And then as far as what's next, we'll still be rocking the rum, but I'll do the plug. Hopefully the gin will be out soon. And while we're waiting on molasses, if you rum drinkers like gin, the gin is, we're trying to do as many local Florida products as we can. Clearly we're limited by some. But one of the 2 key components that I know for sure that we're going to have is Florida oranges and Florida honey in it. And I think just like the rum, it was Jeff's baby. We did a lot of tasting and a lot of hardship to determine which would be the best. And sometimes we try it and I'd be like, well, it tastes like gin. And then we got to the point where I was like, this tastes like awesome gin. Like better, like a step up, like something really unique. So I'm hoping that will come out soon. And
Will that be the name of the product? Awesome gin.
Awesome.
It was on the list.
Since no one can pronounce Ouroboros, we're doing it more simple this time. Southern Panther gin.
Okay.
But I think the label is very Florida. Has a panther on it. Very pretty colors. As soon as we actually have a bottle, we'll definitely get it on social media. But we have on Instagram, Southern Panther Distillery was our flagship site that we started, and we've tried to branch out to have one for Ouroboros Reserve Rum as well. So you can follow either one, both. The Southern Panther Distillery site, you'll get to know a lot more about Florida, where we travel and things about us, because we try to promote whoever we can. So when we go to local restaurants, we'll feature their local cocktails, their local food. And yes, we do have 3 rescue dogs. You'll see a lot of them as well, because we love them a lot. Very passionate about.
Yeah, they get a lot of timeshare.
They do, especially if they wear the Ouroboros Reserve Rum hat. They can be in it multiple times.
But the rum is where the love's at. So don't get me wrong, we love our gin, but the rum is kind of our, like I said, our tête de cuvée. So.
Yeah. So I did actually forget something to ask you was the cocktails that you have. Is it something that you guys come up with, or you work with some of the restaurant or the bars?
It's almost all Sam.
So
Sometimes she makes me bartend, but it's pretty much her making up the drinks. Yeah.
I think it's evolved. Even though I worked in restaurants for quite a while, about a decade, I only bartended for about a year, and it wasn't a place where people were, we had our specialty cocktails, but it wasn't a make me this, make me that. So when we first started off, although I don't say I have an easy job, he still works way more hours than me. So I run all of our social media. A lot of what's on there has either been recipes that I've found online or tried to create my own spin on, or then there's been the random ones that just come randomly from my head and it just tastes good, and then I'm really proud of myself because he's more of the flavor guy and knows what goes together. And I feel like he overall probably loves a lot of more spirits than I do, as far as like adventurous and trying new things. So it's definitely really branched out, and it's been a labor of love. So anytime it's a generic recipe that I make my own, I'm not necessarily saying, oh, I found it here.
Right.
But if it's from a specific place, I'll say I found it there. I get very inspired by other Instagram people. Fiza Shrugged, I'll give a shout out to her on Instagram. She was one of my first Instagram buddies. We've met in person before. She's a delight, and she's super creative and is always coming up with really fun recipes. So,
In Molly's backyard?
Molly's Backyard
Yeah.
Happy Hour as well. I actually travel to Austin quite frequently, so I've met her. She's fabulous. She loves our rum. So, great lady. I always love when someone randomly just makes something out of our rum. Because for the record, we're not paying anybody. So sometimes I might get a bottle, but that's it. But people have just really enjoyed it, or at least I enjoy me, I guess. And we'll make a drink with the rum. So it's always nice when something like that pops up, especially organically when it's a surprise. You get tagged in something. I'm like, look at this beautiful drink you've made with our rum, and then you get really excited. So there's a lot of love out there. You can meet a lot of really good people.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so check out the website. You heard Samantha there. Yep. Online, you buy it online too, right?
Yeah, southernpantherdistillery.com.
Okay.
Has links to where you can buy it online. It can be shipped to many states in the country.
I think over 30 right now. It fluctuates.
Yeah.
Thank God we are not in one of those states that have those type of restrictions. Oh,
We don't have any restrictions in this state.
we are fully open in every kind of way you can think of.
We can ship anything.
If it fits, it ships. So so check out their website. Check out the Instagram, as Samantha talked about. A lot of great posts. Very very entertaining, and as you mentioned, social media posts and so forth. And again, here you some of the upcoming things they've got. So definitely a company you want to stay connected to, follow along. Great passion, obviously, with their process and going through. Again, COVID was a challenge for a lot of folks, and and kudos to sticking through it. I know it was probably a lot of challenging times, and I hear a lot of stories, and it's great to hear. Great to hear to kind of still see the passion and the dream to push through even the last 2 years during the pandemic, and I'm sure there've been many times it tested you, and you've probably thought,
if you're doing something you love, you're going to do it regardless of whether or not it's making you any money. So.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like artists, right? Most artists and musicians are, they say starving artists, but
Most of them, yeah.
yeah, but at least if you're making rum, you're definitely not going to be thirsty artist, right? So, all right, Jeff, Samantha, thank you for coming on to the podcast. Thank you for inviting me down here on location at O Lounge.
O Lounge next to YOLO. Thanks for making the trip.
Yeah, and so we're definitely gonna hang out here for a little bit. I'm sure we'll grab some to eat, next door, hang out for a little bit, and we'll wrap it up. Again, it's a beautiful day here. It's a Sunday. We're in Fort Lauderdale. We're on Las Olas Blvd. Come on down. Check out the scene here. Check out. Don't go anywhere else. Just come here. Come to O Lounge. Right? Forget everywhere else. Everywhere else sucks. All right. Come here to O Lounge and YOLO, and drink some Ouroboros rum. Make some That's right. We forgot to talk about the daiquiri. Yeah, we'll save that for maybe some Instagram posts and so forth. We'll talk about the daiquiri, the Ouroboros daiquiri. So, so again, this is Paul. Check it out. There you go. Florida. There's a flag on it for both the state and the U.S. there. So check it out from Southern Panther Distillery. So again, this is Paul. This is where the back beats meets spirits. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much
Paul.
for
Got it.
having us.
Thanks.
Great to meet you.
Yes.